Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alma Talks podcast with your host, Ashley Rodriguez. In this episode, we have a special guest, Sakina, who is a somatic breathwork practitioner focused on nervous system regulation. She is trauma informed, and she's also a firebender. She forges metals and works with them alongside fire to create beautiful art, jewelry, and ceremonial pieces. With that being said, Sakina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for that great intro. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to be here, excited to chit chat with you today.
Yes, yes. So the first thing I want to ask you about is the metalsmith work that you have under Nightbreed's creation.
Yeah, Nightbreed Creations. Yeah. Interestingly enough, it's I think I even put on my little little Metalsmith Society hoodie today. Of all days, I haven't worn this in forever. But yeah, Nightbreed Creations was a little love child that I had created 13 years ago. Actually almost 14 years next month.
Oh,
And yeah, it just stemmed out of my love of just being a sculptor and an artist. And yeah, I was a painter, photographer, and then I got into sculpture. And then the second my sculptures turned into metal and then into wearable pieces, like it was game over. And I've always been really big into minerals. So I became a lapidary artist, a mineral prospector, spent years like out there digging for crystals, making them into jewelry. So yeah, that's that's what I've done for the last 14 years.
oh, that's
Yeah.
insane. So then you would go ahead and research specific minerals to work with and create ceremonial pieces with in jewelry.
Yeah, so I went out digging a lot for minerals, like actually going to like prospect for minerals. And that was a big part of my healing process in general too. But doing that, I met a lot of people that, yeah, like they were doing intentional things with these beautiful pieces that they were finding from the earth. And I've always been deep in ritual and just the way that I was raised by my beautiful mother, jewelry was always something that was very intimate and important. And although I was super rough around the edges, like stomping around in my boots and like really, you'd find me in a shop. You never find me, just yeah, I was a very particular person. The jewelry was always something that stuck because it was something that she had always implied so much like interest and importance in, but it was always very charged with like emotion, ritual, ceremony. So I feel like my whole life I was programmed in a very beautiful way to look at adornment as almost like a ceremonial thing that we can do for ourselves. And that was just very easily applied with my work. My mom was a big, big part of Nightbreed while she was around. And so just having her there as my muse, really, it was very helpful, very, very helpful. But yeah, every single piece that I made definitely was weaved with a lot of love, a lot of intention, a lot of attention, and a lot of me, a lot of my heart. So it's a very proud thing to like look around and see them on people or just know that all that jewelry's out there in the world.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I've actually read how way back when priestesses would utilize adornment as a part of a ritual and ceremonies. So it's beautiful that you were raised in that way.
Yeah, yeah. My mom was really big on that, and she came from like generations of just looking at adornment as something that was extremely ritualistic. Like I mean, we had certain pieces of jewelry that we got at certain ages. They were only put on in certain times. Everything was cleared with smoke. Like it was very alchemical. And then when I became a metalsmith, I was just so deeply in love with this. There's so much that these little hands have done, and I've been able to look back and be like, whoa, all these little things have made thousands of pieces of jewelry. And every time you get something from a customer and they're like, oh, I put that on and it got me through this day, or like I hold this piece and I pray, that it's almost like completing the feedback loop for me. Whereas when I'm creating those, I am whispering prayer while I create. If I'm forging the metal, I'm fully there. Like I really do utilize my whole body. I love how elemental the experience is. I'm fascinated by our bodies and what they can do. Obviously ties into what I do now, but as a metalsmith, that was a lot of what I got to explore as like a 5'3" young woman, daughter of an immigrant. And a lot of people just really didn't think I had space, you know, in workshops and metal shops. But when I went in there, it was like prayer. I would always say that's my church. You know, I'm going in there, I'm devoted, and you know, my body teaches me what to do, and what comes out of it are these beautiful pieces, and then off they go to people that deeply resonate with them. So yeah, it's always been really, really intentional.
And
Yeah.
a part of it too. Whenever we're in that space of my soul wants this, my soul loves this, my soul creates this, and then you receive that beautiful pleasure from seeing how your art is used and your things are now all over the place, and making their mark on different people. Like, that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
And I saw that you have maybe like a reinvention, I guess you could say, with Nightbreed Creations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so whoop, this is my first time talking about it. Whoa. Okay. So here we are. Yeah, I had put Nightbreed to rest a little over a year ago, just really feeling like that was what was necessary at the moment. And it was like 3 years in the making on top of that. So like it was a big decision, a really, really big decision. And it was a aligned decision to make at the moment. And for the last couple months, so many people are going to giggle when they listen to this. For the last couple months, there's just been too many cues and like too many signs. Pretty much, I like to call them spirit slaps because it's like nonstop, you know, where I'll go to Publix and I'll meet like a customer of mine from years ago. I'll go to the airport, and for every single trip, I've been saying every single trip I've been taking is a trip, because every airplane I get on or airport I end up at, and I'm all over the place right now. I'm like meeting people with like fists of my rings. Somebody in front of me in the plane was like, she put her hand down and I had made her wedding ring 11 years ago. And like,
Oh,
yeah, it's just there are no mistakes in why people are coming into my field, and everybody is like, but why did you stop? You know? And I've had to say thousands of times, like, my body hurts, I am tired, because it is. I am 5'3" and I've been slinging metal for 13 years. Everything hurts. But there's this intangible, like, beyond words sensation inside of me that just has to create. Like, I just have to visually do things with my hands. So I've been dreaming about it. I've been like twiddling, and I'm noticing I'm twiddling a little longer, and I'm like, oh, I want to do this again. You know, we're listening to the signs. But the other day, yeah, it was like I had a really big conversation. And then I had a conversation before myself, like with myself before bed at night. And then I woke up that morning and I had dreamt about myself in the shop all night, all night. And I was looking at this table, all these beautiful things. And it was things that I've been visualizing for the last couple months. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's time, you know? And I really appreciate those whispers within myself. And I listen when I know that it's true and my whole body says yes, I listen. So it was the first time since like calling everything off where my body was like, no, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get back in there. Let's see how it feels. Like, let's do it. You have big things to bring forth. So we'll see what happens. It'll evolve, it'll shift, it'll change. It won't be what it was, you know, and I'm really excited about that too. But I'm here for it all. I'm here for wherever it takes me.
the new techniques that you could do, the new tools that you can utilize that can help your body. So
Yeah. Yeah, and just being a lot more mindful. Like, I feel like now I'm coming at it more embodied, you know? Like, I know my limits now, but the part of me that gets fed in that way, like, I'll take it all the way. So, and then plus being of service to people in that way was a driving force, especially, you know, after my mother passed away. I almost had to find the strife within me to keep going. The business element was there. It was a very successful, thankfully small business. Like, I had people that were counting on me, you know? So I made ways to make it through. And then my body said no. now my body's saying yes. And we're here. It's saying different things. It's saying, I don't want to make what we were making before, but I want to bring this forth. I want to bring that forth. So yeah, I've been collecting the stones that I want to work with. I've been like sketching things out. So it's very baby. It's a baby bloom, but I'm so happy that you just called me out on that because I'm like, wow, I guess I needed to talk about it because my body's waking up now and I'm getting excited. So
Oh, that's
something's there.
amazing. I'm so glad.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Because I just love how, because I followed you on Instagram and then I saw that you had the Nightbreed Creations. And then I
Yeah.
went on there and I saw that you put Firebender and I was like, oh yes, yes, I love that.
Yeah. I the joke when I was in the shop was like, have you ever seen Avatar? Like, yeah. So a lot of like what I did, I always saw that process is, you know, you're generating so much heat and I'm like sweating. I'm like using all my might and my force and my life force essence. And like, it was always a very alchemical process to me, you know? And now that I'm like working with breath and air, it's almost like I completed that elemental circle of everything, you know? And it's been a beautiful cohesion, but yeah, firebender was like something that my old shop mates used to call me because I have a very unorthodox way, just a very strange way of metal smithing and going about my ways. But when you're a 5'3" little woman instead of like a big, you know, the typical blacksmith man, you got to get pretty creative.
Yes.
You have to get really creative. And I love fire. I'm truly in love with the element of like fire. And I danced with fire for a long time. So like doing that and being a metalsmith, they were very cohesive. So people would see me dancing with fire and then creating with fire. And they're like firebender. And it just stuck.
Yes.
Firebender and Fae of the Forge. And I take them both.
Oh, I love
I'm
that.
like that.
All the titles, all the titles.
Yeah, it's playful what people come up with.
Yes. I wanted to ask, because I heard like the minerals thing and you going to mine for the minerals and things of that nature. Like, did you learn about not only the physical properties, but maybe the metaphysical properties of minerals before you started on this journey or as you were going through this journey?
Yeah, I learned a lot about like the metaphysical properties, and that was more so from just my upbringing, you know, like the second we are born, we get a little carnelian bracelet, and like minerals are always a part of our lives. So I feel like I was very blessed in that sense, almost to the point to where I was like resistant, you know, how we go through our phases of growing up. So like in my teenage years, I was when we make sense of things, I was like, oh, okay, this is kerfluff, you know, but the more that I got into it and then when I started digging for them, everything changed. Everything changed. And there's a lot to be said about unearthing something that's been in the earth for God knows how long, hundreds or thousands of years. And the first time it sees the sun is in your hands and it's like a birthing process. It's very intimate for me. But there's something that happened there where I noticed with different minerals, my whole body was having really intense like reactions. And I already knew it, but it was always very subtle, energetic, you know, and then something shifted and I was like, "Ooh, what's going on?" My whole world was blasted wide open. I start talking to other mineral prospectors to see if that's like something that they're experiencing. And I started there. And, you know, a lot of those people are like, they're into it, but they're not into it in the way that, you know, like maybe we are now, you know? And that led me into a path of learning a lot about the metaphysical properties. I used to give talks called Crystal Speak, just on like
Oh,
different properties of crystals, both energetically and both like in that realm, but also just scientifically, because at the end of the day, we are minerals, right? So minerals with minerals, and there's a lot more to explore there. I love them. My whole house is covered in them. And yeah, I appreciate all aspects of minerals, the metaphysical side, spiritual, scientific, logical, not whatever it is. They're just incredible. Incredible.
yes. So with that as well, working with the metaphysical properties, and then you saying that, you know, you work with fire, and then now you're working with breath work, and you've been able to complete the cycle of the elements.
Mm.
Um, how did you get into breath work and that breath work practice and facilitating those sessions that you have?
Yeah. So I guess this is where things get uh pretty dense. I ended up my mother is a big part of my journey, a big part of my story, right? And she was diagnosed when I was 11. And from that point on, my whole life was just being a caregiver. You know, I was a daughter, I was a caregiver, I was a student, I was many, many things. I filled many, many shoes. And we had a very she had a very slow and a very painful journey with her diagnosis. And in between all of that, there wasn't any room for anything other than the duties that I had as the daughter, as the caregiver, and as everything else that I was doing. As her health kind of declined and started making a way out, you know, I noticed that a lot of my health was declining. And being the curious person that I was, but also the deeply eager person that I was to find a solution to keep my mother around, I went down every single rabbit hole that you could ever possibly think of. I mean, ask me anything and I probably have tried it or researched it, you know, and that came from a deep yearning of just wanting to see the most beautiful woman that I know, like, not leave this plane. You know, it didn't make sensation is what I say to me, you know, cancer was just this like invisible demon to me. And in the path of trying to figure that out and sustain my mother, I found every modality you could ever think of, every plant medicine you could ever think of, every therapy you could ever think of, everything in between. The one thing that never left me was breath. And when my health collapsed on me, it actually left me completely disabled. So I was not able to stand up, get up. I couldn't even like lift myself up off the bed. I couldn't use the press. I couldn't do anything. And I was just very much in the space of I can't be here anymore. Like I just can't do this anymore. And I had this repetitive story in my head that was so programmed from everything else, of course, like caregiver guilt and a lot of other, you know, layers were involved, but laying on my back, stuck, feeling disabled, and also feeling so deeply disconnected from my body, not even knowing like who that was that was just there existing. All I could do was breathe. When you're stuck on your back and you're fully disabled, like all you can do is breathe, you know? And so I just remembered all of the things that I had learned about breath. I didn't necessarily know all of the like terms and all of that at that point, but I remembered that certain patterns used to help me. You know, I would drop my mom off to chemo and work my 3 jobs and take care of 2 younger siblings and then go into my car and just lose it. I would lose it. For 5 minutes, I would just let myself lose it. And I would cry it out, shake it out. I would everything I tell people to do in these sessions. And I would be breathing, but I would notice that a certain type of like breath pattern was doing what it needed to do, and it didn't take long, so I did it. And then I'd like ground myself, center myself, and I'd walk in and I'd speak to her doctors and everybody that I had to speak to, clear, connected, calm. I was able to serve her. So I started to remember that and I was like, okay, try that. And even at that point, it hurt to breathe. I was so shut down and my body was shutting down so much that I couldn't even take a full breath. Everything looked like everything had a stutter to it. And so I just started to explore that. And the more that I did that, I mean, I literally did breathe myself back into health to the point to where it was like frustrating. It was almost annoying that it was so simple. You know, like I'm sitting here and I saw so many doctors. I got hundreds of tests. I had many false diagnoses, including cancer in my own body after I had just lost my mother to cancer, you know. And everything inside of me said, this is not it. Like, there are no answers out here anywhere, no matter what we do, no matter what doctor I see, no matter what test we get, there are no answers. And the more that I remembered, our body does keep the score. Our body does know. I just started getting really, really curious. And the more that I got curious, the more that I utilized the breath, like everything unfurled right in front of me. And I had a lot of support with traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture as well. Um, I flipped my whole world around really, and 6 months I was like really turning people's heads like, whoa, okay, you're doing it. And then a year in, it was like, okay, you got this, like you really got this, you're really onto something, And the more that time passed, like the more I popped up, and I'm actually healthier now than I've ever been in my entire life. And I always say I'm my own best walking testimony. And that is very much the reason why I'm like so laser focused on breath, because it did bring me back to life. And the amount of people, the amount of beautiful experiences that I have day to day, the amount of people that I get to watch just soar. None of that would have been possible had I not met myself there first and met myself in those uncomfortable places and just trusted this breath, trusted this tool that never leaves us, never leaves us. So it's a beautiful, deeply passionate thing. I could literally ramble on past our hour allotment, but yeah, when I say I love the breath and I research it to all heck for fun. I play with myself as my own research with my breath, and that's the only way that I feel comfortable serving that to my communities. It's a beautiful thing. There's a lot there. And I learned that too along the way. But I would say 7 years later into grief, trauma, and somatics, I feel like I've arrived in a good place. I feel like it's been really, really good to be in this realm. It's really wild to see breathwork growing as much as it is. But now I know that there's no mistake that I had to go through what I went through, years ago. Had to learn everything that I've been learning, because now I feel like a pillar. Like I feel very solid in what I know and my knowledge and what I serve and the sessions that come forth, and yeah, how I utilize my own breath, how I embody my own practices. It's been a beautiful full circle thing, a really beautiful full circle thing.
Yes, yes. I wanted to ask as well, you said that you remembered breath. So is
Mhm.
that something that like you grew up with doing prior to everything with your family, or is that something that you just remembered from your soul? Like your soul remembered this practice?
I would say there's a little bit of both mixed in there, right? So, um, when I was saying I remembered, it was more so sourcing that moment of like being in, it's so clear, hospital parking lot, and I'd always park in the same spot. And there's plenty of times where I actually was doing that. And there was one time where they broke into my car and hospitalized me because they thought that I was having an anxiety attack. And I was just regulating myself.
My God, wow.
And that moment just deeply got lodged into me because I got shot up with all kinds of things. I was dragged into the hospital. Like it was a very traumatic experience for me to like try to trust my body. And then everybody was telling me, you're doing the wrong thing, and then I ended up worse than I was in my car. I remember that really, really like programming me. And the next time that I sat down to do that in the hospital parking lot, because I had to, I actually like shoved clothes up in my windows. I like pulled my window up and put clothes in them. And I made sure nobody could see anything. And I did what I had to do. And that moment was like such a deep moment of like reclaiming my power, and reclaiming. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know that this works. And I didn't know. I didn't know everything that I know now. I'm deeply informed now. Back then, I was just trying to survive. So a lot of it has shifted since then. But when I say I remember, like that moment is really what I'm pulling from, is like that day when I was in the car, sweaters and everything just like all up in there, and I just did what I had to do. And I remember something happening in my body like, yeah, just do this, you're listening to me, something's happening. And it was a really, really wild experience for me just because I was so uninformed in the moment. But I will never forget the way that I was able to walk in afterwards, and like everything was calm, cool, regulated. my mother, even that day, just like kept reaching over and grabbing my hand, and like I was able to source her with some of what I had just generated, in my little cooped up, car in the hospital parking lot. So yeah, I would say that that is like a tangible moment of remembrance, but there's been plenty of intangible ones weaved in between, of just sometimes it's mundane, when I'm in my morning practice and I end up sobbing because I'm like, gosh, my body just knows and is so happy we're here again. Thank goodness it remembered. Thank goodness it remembered the full capacity of this earthen vessel and everything that it can do, and every time that I call on that innate wisdom within myself or within people in my sessions, we all remember. Remembering is to just, we're calling ourselves back in, we're calling all parts of us back, remembering ourselves. And the biggest part of our being is our breath. It's the one thing we do when we arrive here. It's the last thing we do before we leave. Nobody tells us how to use it to our best benefit in between. So yeah, breath work.
Out of 10, recommend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would there be like different types of patterns that you would do to reclaim it, or is it like a specific one to reclaim it versus like other ones that you could do for other purposes for breath work?
Yeah, so this is where I started to get really playful with my research. I have so many like certifications, and I've done so much research, and I've learned so much about breathwork, and I've tried it all. Like everything that I could find, I've tried it, and I'm like big seeker. I'm like I think a 1-3 in human design. So it's all just like wisdom, knowledge, all the things. And I like that part of myself. I do. I honor that part of myself. What that's taught me is that with the breath, um, depending on what it is that you want to do with your body and the experience that you want to have, where you want to arrive within yourself, there's a massive range of what you can do with the breath. Also, with that being said, another layer is I am very mindful when I speak of certain techniques or like practices, because I've learned how to be responsible and how easy it is to be irresponsible, because it's a tool that is right here and everybody can access it at any point. Just as much as it is a beautiful tool to like regulate and calm the nervous system, you can blast yourself wide open. That's what we do in our sessions a lot of the times, and without it being with like a facilitator, especially somebody that's trauma informed, somebody that really knows how to truly hold somebody, that goes all the way there. I always say return to the basics, and that seems to be the most powerful. It's also the one with the most breadth for your breath, so a lot of what I employ is just a circular connected breath. I don't do a lot of like the fancy left nostril, right nostril, here, that, and it's beautiful practices. I've just learned that from years of research, and what has worked the most for my clients, which are very much there for like the full journey and to go like all the way there, like big transformational moments. I'm very much the catalyst in people's lives of like when you really want to switch and flip, like let's do that. That's what I always work with, is circular connected breath, something that's deeply activating to the nervous system and regulating to the nervous system, but isn't overcomplicated, because the point is to stay in our bodies and to not be in our minds, where we won't find a lot of these like solutions, So yeah, hopefully that answers your questions. I keep it really simple. I keep it really, really simple with the breath patterns, and that's just based on lots of research, and really yearning for the collective to just lean into their bodies more, leaning into their body's wisdom more. Sometimes we don't have to remember all of the fancy, like in, left, right, this, that, 3 minutes, exactly 3 minutes, 7 minutes. Like then it defeats everything. Now we're checking our timers and we're wondering if we're doing it right. And this nostril's clogged because it's got snot in it. Like there's too much. Your body knows what to do. Just connect. And from then where you go, be responsible. That's
Yeah.
what I would.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think for me, I spent a lot of time not wanting to do breath work because of like you have to do this many repetitions of this breath, and I'm like, I know that I'm not gonna keep track of like how many I'm doing. And if I'm supposed to do like a certain amount, then I'm going to not be in my body like how I'm supposed to during the breath work. I'm gonna be in my mind trying to think, okay, one, two, three, and it's gonna lose its effect. Um, but regardless of that, the breath work session that I went to and I was able to go, it was freaking amazing. And it is crazy to honestly feel like your body and your mind slightly like disconnect. And by that, I mean like my mind wasn't taken over anymore. It wasn't like, you need to keep it together, girl. It was like, okay, my body's now at the forefront. And it's like, okay, so what do we need to do to recalibrate your body? What do we need to do that you need to release so we can come back to center and move forward? Um, so that was just amazing that you can do that with something as simple as your breath, as foundational as your breath.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, our bodies definitely know, but the real awe I feel in this practice is just remembering that we have lost the art of deepened presence. It starts with us. So, and I say this all the time, but there is infinite value in showing up for yourself in that way, coming to a space that is intentionally created for you to go on an inward journey, for you to explore these inner realms, because no matter what, to exist is to experience pressure, right? And stress. It's inevitable to the human experience. And this human experience is full spectrum. It is full spectrum, which means that the polarity of joy comes with grief and everything else, and a lot of the times people just don't. There's a lot of resistance to breath work because the breath work that has been out there for a while, there's a lot of like the counting and this and that, and you must be in all white shamanic drip with your mala beads. Like there's a lot, whereas we just forget that we're technically doing breath work like all the time, but breath work also means just being mindful of your breath, so there's layers there. But most of the resistance that people come up towards is like just feeling and just being in the body, because that in itself is so uncomfortable, especially with all the conditioning that we have. If you discharge your emotions in a way that your body feels is appropriate, you might get the cops called on you. Like if you're out in public and you're like, you have to get whatever, somebody's road rage out, or like you're moving through something and you just have to like scream it out and pound it out and do what you have to do, that might not be received very well, especially with all the conditioning that we have, but just in general. However, when you carve out in some intentional time and space to do so, you're able to fully meet yourself. You're able to give yourself permission. As you give yourself permission and your body permission, your body will tell you what it wants to tell you. But also, in the beauty of a group session, entrainment is happening, and that's inevitable. All of our nervous systems are doing an energetic dance at that point. So the more that you give yourself permission, the more that you meet yourself in those spaces, the more you're giving everybody else around you permission, and then it amplifies, and then the group just carries itself. The group really does turn into its own little symbiotic organism, and I'm just there to hold it down and be responsible and make sure that everybody is tended to in the way that they need to be tended to, but there's a lot that can happen from our breath, and the only reason why we don't know that is because we're too busy sipping on it, like even me right now being hunched over. Like we're always contracted here, we're always collapsed. There's so much that isn't moving through these spaces. And when we move through those spaces, the vagus nerve, when we massage that area, the vagal brake, when we get into these creative centers, whether you look at it from the chakras or you look at it from like the meridians and like the actual nerve ganglia in your body, like say it however you want to say it, there's something here for us to work with. And the more that we clear, we become clear, right? The more that we feel it, the more we can heal it. The more we can name it, the more we can tame it. I got a lot of these phrases, but really it's a beautiful thing, and it never ever ever gets old. I mean, ever. the last time I checked, I was at like 1,400 sessions, like 1,400, just in what I have counted, and then plus everything else, and then plus my own sessions. And I'm sitting there just like laughing, crying in awe. And I'm like, and none of them are the same. None of them are ever the same. Look at how brilliant we are. Look at how multifaceted we are. And look at how much we can find out when we just listen. Like our body wants to tell us all of that just through the breath. Whoa, that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
So with so many different sessions that you've done, what would you say would be like a good practice to have with your own breath work, like on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis?
Yeah. First thing is actually get to know your breath. So that's what people are always asking me this question. Is like, how do I start with breath work? I'm like, when was the last time you took a full inhale? And usually it's not that day or any time that they can even think of being mindful about a breath, that's where I say start, is like start by waking up in the morning and taking a full inhale. A full inhale after just sipping on your breath all night. Give your body that. Wake it back up, and find your capacity for the day. Once you find that, then you can play with your range for the day, and you can learn, and everything gets a lot more alive and a lot more curious. So I would say start there. As far as something that's a little bit more integrated into, like, say, like a morning practice, something that I do is I have a short little, like, 5 minute, 2 to 5 minute breathwork practice that I have shared on my Instagram reels, and it's something that I send out often. I think that that's a great morning practice, especially for people that are curious about the work that they see from my sessions, which is very much about expression and showing up as your full self as you are. I think that that's a great little morning practice. It takes 5 minutes. It's a couple, like 2 rounds of breath, 2 breath holds, just getting curious about the self. And I feel like that's a beautiful, beautiful start as well.
Beautiful. Um, I guess with that too, the question that I would have is like, what would be the difference or what can you receive between, so if someone is curious about starting their own breathwork practice, what would be, I guess, the pros and cons you could say between them doing all of this on their own versus being guided by someone like you or going to like a group session that's facilitated?
It's a great question. Thank you for asking. So I definitely encourage people to learn their breath. However, if you are at all curious about transformational experiences with breath work, you can access those on your own. Just know that you are opening up Pandora's box, right? So like we think of how many experiences we have in a day. How many experiences have you had today? It's 6 something right now. A lot of things have happened in your day. Now, think about how much has happened to you in your week, and think about it in a month. And now think about how many times, like, how many months you've been through, how many years. Now think about how many days you've been alive. There are so many layers and so many moments and so many things lodged in our bodies as parasitic tension in our nervous systems. And when you titrate those, traumatic experiences can come back up. If you do not have the resources to soothe yourself or to navigate those, it can get really slippery. It can get really, really slippery. And I'm equally passionate about this because I feel like embodiment is responsibility too, and we are curious as humans, we're curious creatures. So I experience a lot of people that have slip ups, including myself, of, getting that first like breath hold high where you're like, whoa, what just happened? Right. And then you're like, I want to do that again. I want to do it again, and people can get really carried away. I feel like if you are in any sense feeling like you're not deeply informed enough to carry yourself through more of like more than a 10 to 15 minute practice, do your body the service to be responsible and lean into somebody that just knows what they're doing and can hold that space for you. I would say a lot of the clients, especially recently, which has been really interesting, I've been getting a lot of feedback of like, hey, I tried this breathwork video and like I am a mess. I cannot stop crying. I cannot stop thinking about this memory that I thought I tucked away when I was 6 and now I'm, freaking out on my partner. That's all very real. It's really real. And then they end up in my sessions and we have to work it out. But that's something that I'm trying to like really explain. It's a beautiful tool. We all have it. It's free. It's deeply accessible. Know it. Get to know it. That's all I have to say is get to know it, because it'll take you all the way there if you walk yourself there. And that's where the responsibility part comes in, If you're starting out, it's always a good idea to get to know yourself, but be witnessed by somebody. Be witnessed by somebody, just for the sheer sense of like even learning ceilings of inhales and exhales, learning how to count that, learning how to explore the breath of the in-betweens. There's a lot of beauty in sharing, and healing happens in the presence of an empathetic witness. So it's it can be communal. It can be a super powerful solo practice. If it's a solo practice, just be mindful, like be aware, have a good grip on your own somatic awareness and presence with yourself, with your own emotions. If something comes up, know that you can be responsible instead of reactive. Go for it. Otherwise, like definitely explore working with a practitioner. Explore with somebody that's been researching it forever and ever and ever. I'll talk your ear off about it if you want. Or, go to group sessions and learn just how incredible it is to watch community come together in that way, because is it transformative? Like, I mean, look at what you saw, and we're still feeling the ripples from that session. Whoa. So it's yeah.
Yes, it was a very beautiful and powerful session. And everybody at the end was just so able to be present and so able to be loving towards everybody. It was definitely a beautiful community that was formed before and afterwards as well, because of the fact that we were able to be supported. And I love how you've mentioned how the body keeps the score, and sometimes the body like holds on to things that we don't realize, because at the end of the day, like we can only remember so many things on our day-to-day basis for us to continue our path, for us to do our tasks and XYZ and whatever. And we're not going to remember 100% of the experiences that we have. Usually that's stored in our subconscious. And then when we open up the breath, that is something that connects our conscious to our subconscious. And then maybe something that you, like how you said, thought that you were able to forgive. So do you know what? Like I already said, I forgive you. We like squash this, whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, hold on. There's like a little snippet of that I haven't truly completely healed yet. I haven't allowed myself that feeling. And with this breathwork session now, it's all over the place, like Pandora's box. And I guess something too that I would like to say is that the reason why I asked that question is because I am someone that is very, I wouldn't say curious, but I question a lot. I like to ask a lot of questions. And it's kind of like, well, if I can go to a session and then I have this tool within me, just like how yoga, I can do yoga on my own. Cool. But it's going to be different if I do it on my own in my house versus if I go to like a yoga class, whether it's a group session or a one-on-one session, and they're leading me through the moves and I'm being there supported and I'm being told, okay, so do it this way instead. Or, hey, I'm here to hold you. Oh, you're doing that? That's a little hard. Let me facilitate this for you so it's easier for you to move into the next step. Like we can't pretend that we are the masters of breath work, the masters of yoga, the masters of whatever modality you want to talk about, because we all start somewhere. And as human beings, I also believe that we are meant to be in community, and the skill sets that I have, my strengths, are to be used for other people, just like how the things that are my weaknesses, I'm supposed to reach out to other people for them to help me. And it's supposed to be this beautiful symbiotic relationship with community where this is my strength, I give this to you, and you come to me for it, and this is your strength, so I'm going to come to you for it so you can help me out. So that's just something to keep in mind, I guess, for those people that are like questioning, should I go to a breathwork session or not? Try it. You're going to be sustained, you're going to be held.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. Let me, I just realized that my charger isn't actually plugged in, so let me fix that real quick before we get.
Yes, go ahead, go ahead. But yeah, so I also, as you get your charger, to expand a little bit on that as well, is that, a lot of times people feel like we have to heal ourselves on our own, or that we might be too much of a burden to go ahead and reach out to other people, you know, and for their help and for them to sustain us. And the reality is that we're human beings meant to be in a community for a reason. We are here to help each other. In the olden days, there was a woman that would work with the textiles, and maybe there was another woman that was really good with the herbs and would make beautiful herbal teas and medicines. And maybe there's a couple of women that have to do with the birthing process, and they were the midwives. Versus then there's other women that would maybe go ahead and provide a beautiful food. So it's kind of like all of these different people that would have different skill sets would come together and help each other. And sometimes when we put all of this weight on ourselves, it's also healing to go to somebody else and say, hey, I need help. And by you allowing yourself to go to somebody else to support you in this process, it's taking away the pressure that you're putting on yourself to be like, I have to heal myself. I can do breath work on my own because I have the tools within me. I can figure it out. But sometimes it's almost like it's needed for you to say, you know what? I want somebody to help me, even though you can do it on your own. You're more than capable. No one says that you can't breathe. Like you're alive, so you can breathe. But by you extending your hand out to somebody else, it's also kind of like, okay, now I have someone with me that I can lean on. And it's so nice to be able to lean on somebody else during these sessions too. So yeah, just went on a little tangent there on community.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thanks. Yeah, it was funny because I went to go reach for the charger and the computer shut off. So thanks for being patient with me there. But I love that. I love what you were just sharing. And another thing that I wanted to add was that at the end of it all, even with our nervous systems, like we actually do need that. We need healing touch. There's many, many layers to what we need from other humans, because a lot of the times our traumas, our wounds, our experiences come from these relations. They come from the lack of presence. They come from the lack of awareness. So when somebody is given that deepened presence or that deepened awareness, it's like that healing salve that their wound has been waiting for. And it comes in the form of a human that's just fully there, just fully, fully there. And people that become, practice. I never thought that I'd become what I am now, an integrative somatic trauma therapist. Like, no, I was happy slinging metal and stone, but had I not had to go through the experiences that I had to go through with my mother, and and then I was a death doula, and I worked with a lot of people going in and out of death and life, and I've seen plenty. There is no way that I would be able to hold the people the way that I hold them had I not, experienced all these things and found that unshakable center, the essence, my truth within myself. And I feel like that is something that no program, no certification, but also no amount of convincing that you've got it on your own is going to do for you. It's just not. I mean, even me with all of my tools, I have a session booked for myself tomorrow, like we need each other. We need each other. We are communal beings.
Mhm.
So just, I guess, wanted to add that.
Yeah, yes, we definitely do need each other. And it's nice to have all the certifications and all the knowledge. But for example, with your story, this is something that was innately within you, and it was awakened through everything. And you're a natural at all of this. This is something that you utilized before you even knew what breath work was. And then now you have the knowledge to back it up as well. So that way you are aware, okay, so this is how I deal with people that might have been dealing with trauma. And that's something nice to have, because it's this beautiful marriage between your natural ability and what you're meant to be doing, plus the fact that you took the time to research, so you're also knowledgeable about what you're providing out to your community. So yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, it was really important to me for myself really first. You know, when people started calling on me more, like my health was transforming, and then everybody was like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you doing?" And I'd be like, "I'm breathing," and then everybody would just get pissed off. Like, people would just get so annoyed because I would tell them, you know, and they didn't want to hear that I was doing acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine and eating, you know, an insane diet for, you know, every day. My daily practice was my breath, and that used to really irk people. And then as I got healthier and healthier and healthier, people were like, all right, well, then fine, let me try it, you know? And I would like go to get my morning coffee and I'd be sat down. I'd be like, Sakina, 5 minutes, you know? And I'd have to like do the breath work thing, you know? And it got to be really fun because I started to see people transforming in 5 minutes, you know? That turned into almost a calling of like, okay, I really don't want to be irresponsible because a little part of that's kind of irresponsible, you know, like now you're crying into your coffee. Oops, you know, so let's figure out how to make this something that I can really, at least when people ask me, you know, I have something under my belt to where I feel like, okay, I feel good, you know? So that's why I started getting into the certifications and all of that. But it was more so just to know that like when people come to me, I it's so deeply ingrained in me as a caregiver to view everybody as, I mean, just as important as my mother. And there was no room for error. There was no room. Her life literally depended on me knowing, you know, anything that I could know and helping her from that space. And if I slipped up, she felt the consequence. So, like, I really carry that into my sessions. And it's something that is so natural that sometimes during sessions, I'm like, oh God, look at you, you know? But it makes me feel so alive and it makes me feel so aligned. It makes me feel so activated. It also gives purpose to all of that pain that I felt. If had I known, you know, and that's the biggest gift of all of this. And this is what I always tell people is like, you have the opportunity with every single breath to alchemize your pain into purpose. Every single breath is an opportunity to alchemize your pain into purpose. It doesn't have to be pain either. It could just be any sensation. However, I really feel like there's a lot to be said about just embodiment in general, exercising discernment with the people that you trust yourself with in these vulnerable spaces. If I ever feel like I can't serve somebody best, I know plenty of brilliant humans out there. I might not be the one for you. And that's the other beautiful thing about healing spaces or anybody that you go to in general or circles or whatever that is. Just because one person, you know, lands for somebody doesn't mean that they'll land for everybody. And that is also the beautiful curiosity of getting to know ourselves and healing work. However, don't ever, ever forget discernment. Your body can feel safety. Somebody can tell you they're safe all day. If they don't feel safe, they're just, it's not gonna do anything for you. So, and research says that, and your body tells you. So I feel like that's a really important thing to speak on, is just like exercising that discernment, I've been talking about this term that I'm using in my thesis called energetic hygiene. And it's something that I feel like is actually landing with people, you know, just like we exercise hygiene in any other way. Exercise your energetic hygiene. Like your nervous system is actually impacted by the 5 people that you have around you, generally 5 people that you have around you. You know, you can also pretty much only feel an emotion in its fullness from like 90 to 110 seconds. So in those moments of when you're choosing, because you do decide, you know, make the right decision. Make the right decision and listen to your body first. So yeah, I feel like from the beginning of when you even think about breath work to like doing the things, I feel like it's already this like beautiful practice of discernment and like deeply listening. There's a reason why I say it 5,000 times during my session. I'm like, your body knows. And a lot of the times people pop up and they're like, yeah, I know. It had a lot to say. So being able to have those conversations and have somebody that's responsible around and like just truly there for that purpose with intention I think is so pivotal. It's so pivotal.
I love that you said that an emotion lasts 90 to like 110 seconds. Because for me, that's something that when I learned that, it helped me a lot with really asking myself questions as to why am I feeling this way and why am I still feeling this way after this long? Because when we're born with emotions, and that's what we utilize to be able to interact in this world, to know what's safe, what's not safe. That's how our soul communicates with our body, through emotion, period, point blank. um so knowing that the emotion that's going to run through my body is supposed to go through like a minute max, like 3 minutes, let's say 3 minutes max. If it's more than 3 minutes, there's something else deeper that's going on besides just my body letting me know, hey, this is what's up. So
Mhm.
what am I holding on to? What does my body know that I don't? What is my body remembering that I don't remember? What do I need to work through that I'm not really conscious of? And knowing that if I hold on to an emotion for longer than 3 minutes is partly my choice, that I might want to hold on to that feeling, or also partly like there's something that I am not aware of that I do need to sit down with myself and be like, okay, so is this like past trauma? Is this a past experience? Where is this coming from? So that was nice, because that was a big part for me in my emotional regulation and stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of people, and it was a massive like breakthrough point for me too, because the second I read that, I remember I read it on a PubMed paper, and then I fact checked it with like Dr. Huberman, who I'm a huge fan of, and then I fact checked it like with a bunch of people, because it's kind of one of those things where when something lands for you personally, you're like, huh, what, and because I would have like, I mean, I've always been a very, a lot of us have always been like these highly sensitive, like deeply attuned. But to be fully honest, I was hypervigilant. I was like deeply hypervigilant. I grew up in a very like, a lot of people that come from abuse and like a lot of these tougher situations and foundational situations from childhood end up adapting these abilities of like their gifts, and they are also hypervigilance. So, and a lot of the clients that I work with are in these spaces as well. And what has landed the most for especially like men, but a lot of the CEOs and those types of people that I work with, once they understand, whether you want to be fully into the like spiritual side of these practices, or if you want to just look at it from a logical lens, your body literally like it can't discharge the emotion for much longer than that. It literally can't. So if you meet yourself in your fullness, like say you have so much anger or rage built up inside of you, if you really feel that fully feel it fully, see it clearly, let it light up your whole body, it can only do that for so long,
Mhm.
and then it's done. So, and that is where most people are like, whoa, okay. So, like, if you just stick with the discomfort, which I always say, once you meet that threshold of where comfort meets discomfort, that's where you find your resilience. Your resilience is your brilliance, period, point blank. Your resilience is actually the way that you can navigate the ebbs and flows of this life with grace, because it's not going to stop. Life won't stop lifing for you. Learn how to navigate it with grace. And the more that you meet yourself and give yourself that 90 to 110 seconds, it's a stunning thing to see that happen in sessions. But the more you do that, the more you can get to what's underneath it. Like you said, a lot of the times under anger is sadness. You can get there, and then you can feel that. And then what's under that? Your natural birthrights start coming back up. Maybe you'll crack a smile. Maybe something will come to you that you've just been deeply yearning for. There's so much to it. But to meet yourself there, it comes with deep reward. Nature rewards courage.
Yes, yes, it does. Yes, yes, yes. And then anger is a secondary emotion. Usually there's always an underlying emotion beneath anger. It's never just anger.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask as well, if someone listening to this episode has been curious about breath work and they're still not convinced, just kidding, just kidding. But like if they're just curious, they haven't done it before, and they want to go ahead and like take that next step to go to like a breathwork session, what would be something that you would share for them?
Mhm. I would still say explore the breath on your own. I would say even learning what the breath does, like most people don't even know what an elongated exhale does. Most people don't even know what sympathetic versus parasympathetic means. Our nervous systems are like, they are actually that is what we need to be regulating. And it starts with the breath, right? So I would say if you want to get in charge of your emotions, which most people do, it's a beautiful skill to have. It starts with the breath. It starts with the nervous system, right? In order to get once you get your emotions in check, then you're getting your behavior in check, your habits in check, your life in check. So whether you want to, you could be resistant about a breathwork session, you're still breathing though. So, and it's not going to stop, so you might as well know what your body is capable of. If you're resistant to a full session, start with just learning. An elongated exhale will activate parasympathetic rest and digest. Sympathetic will activate you. How can you start using that in your day-to-day? That in itself is already such a mind-blowing breathwork practice to some people, and it was to me when I first started too, that I would just say start there. Keep your resistance, because resistance is healthy too. Knowing that if you have a little bit of resistance, it's probably the medicine that you need. And that's my favorite part, is like during sessions, or like right before a session, I'll get like 40 emails and it's like, I don't know, I'm kind of scared, I just don't know if I'm going to show up, actually, and then suddenly something will come up and I'm like, ooh, it's gonna be a good session, this is gonna be a good session. And yeah, it never fails, it never ever fails. But I would say if there's any resistance at all, start with your breath. Get to even know what your breath is. Do you know where the ceiling of your inhale is? Do you know what an elongated exhale does? Have you ever put that into practice? Start there and then titrate everything. I mean, I'm big on titration, especially when it comes to trauma-informed practices and modalities like this that can wake up the system in big ways. I would say titrate. And what titration means is just dipping your toes into something, right? So that dipping your toes of just like learning an elongated exhale is like a really good simple example. But other than that, maybe the 5-minute practice that's on my Instagram, starting there, or ask a million questions. Ask all the questions, because the beauty of this time is, and I've been in this for like 7 years now, so this is just the most exciting thing to me, being who I am, is like I'm constantly asking questions and I'm so curious. The amount of research now that we have, thank goodness, but the amount of tangible evidence that we now have to back up the practices behind breath work and, all kinds of things. But of course, I'm constantly looking into the breath work side of things. That is what I send to people too, that have a lot of resistance or whatever that is. Sometimes that just lands a little bit better for people, like I just want to know. I want to make some sort of sensation, before I commit my body to it, because like I said, people are afraid to meet the fullness of their emotion. We're told so much to be quiet, quiet it down, oh, be quiet, oh, don't act like that, don't be a bit, don't do this, there's so much. So when somebody says, oh, I give you full permission to come as you are and we're gonna breathe the whole way, you're like, what? That's a lot. It's a lot, and I know it's a lot. So yeah, I come at people with shortened practices. First of all, wake up and take a deep inhale and tell me how your day changes. Start there. Start with a 5-minute practice if you're ready for breath. If you're not ready for breath, let me send you some research. Let me just send you some things to read. Let me send you a YouTube video, a podcast to listen to. Be gentle with yourself. Just because breath work is becoming a buzz, know that the reason why people are actually like experiencing adverse effects is because they're going all out and just running into spaces with uninformed facilitators and all that. Like, you don't have to ride that train. Actually, you can take a step back, exercise discernment, energetic hygiene, the way you do with everything else, and say, you know what, I understand that breathwork might be a potent medicine, and I'm not sure that I'm here for a full journey yet. However, I'm deeply curious. I want to read a little bit more. I want to hear a little bit more. Maybe I want to hear other people's experiences. That's been really powerful too. That's why I always try to put testimonials up, is people will hear that and there's something that lands for when you see somebody just as human as you are talking about what it had done for them, like that really wakes things up in people, you know? Yeah. Reach
Yes.
out to me. Like, I got plenty of resources.
How can people like get in contact with you? Where would they go to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so the easiest way to get in contact with me directly would be through email. Or yeah, I would say email at this point. Instagram is where I'm most active. However, DMs get really overwhelming, and it's really hard for me to interact and communicate in a way that feels right for me. So I would say email is really the best resource. If you do like follow on Instagram and all the things, if you DM me, just know that I'm doing my best to respond to everybody. But I think email is the best way, and I'm happy to share you know, phone numbers and talk in that way. And yeah, just really, really here for support, especially in this time where there's like so much curiosity waking up, especially in this collective out here. I'm like, yeah, talk to me. I'm here for it.
But what is your email so I can put it also on the show notes for the episode?
It's just my name, Sakina, at entertheinnertemple.com. So Enter the Inner Temple is my business, and yeah, it's my first name.
Perfect. And then your Instagram handle is?
It's Sakina, Sakina dot Seva, Seva.
Yes. And then, by the way, the Nightbreed creations of the firebending, that's
It's
on
tagged.
Instagram.
It's tagged in my bio. So yeah, yeah. And it's gonna be really cool. You know what, to heck with it, because we already talked about it. I am the first collection coming back is actually the most like beautiful cohesion and marriage of Nightbreed and Enter the Inner Temple. So yeah, there's like some really exciting things happening. Really exciting. And with that being said, yeah, I'm going to be bringing back breathwork for creatives. I'm going to be bringing back like breathwork for small businesses, breathwork for people that want to, you know, like utilize the breath to get really creative, you know? And like we are these incredibly brilliant beings. We have so much that we can do. And yeah, I'm like the amplifier in the group where I'm like, let's breathe it out and then let's make it, you know? So I really want to bring that back. Like a lot of my shop mates, you know, haven't seen me around in a while. They know what I've been up to and now they want to try it. So I'm like, wow, look at this marriage of all of my worlds coming together. Like it's happening, you know? All of the things that light me up, that make me feel most alive are finding their ways into harmony, you know? And yeah, it's a really exciting time. Really exciting time. The next collection is going to be awesome.
I'm excited.
Awesome.
I'm excited for the action. I'm excited for the breathing, for the creatives, just for everything. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm excited to be talking about this and hopefully, you know, like have you around more and learn more about all it is that you bring forth, because it's been a beautiful thing to drop into this community more and more. I'll say that it's been a blessing.
Yes, it's beautiful. I'm so blessed to be able to like interact with all these amazing women, such as yourself and other people that we've interacted with, that really come from a heartfelt space, a loving space, a space where we can all be sisters, where we can all love each other, support each other, and just help each other grow. And that's just, it's it's priceless, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It's like that intangible nectar of life. That's what I've been saying. Like every time that we've been getting together, it actually has felt like prayers answered for me, you know? But it's like not just my prayers. I feel like it's been all of our prayers and our mothers and our grandmothers and our ancestors and everybody that's just like very lovingly watching us and guiding us. And it feels that way. It really does feel that way. And I feel like the more that we are showing up in integrity, you know, like we're just finding each other and we're remembering in this sense too, you know, like we're remembering that when we come together and like truly cultivate from a space of like deep integrity and trust, look at what can happen.
Mhm.
Oof, look at what can happen. And this is what I mean, this is what we're here to do, you know. This I get activated every time I even think about it. So I'm really honored and blessed to be dancing this path alongside you too, because you are one heck of a force. So thank you for being you, really.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I just got chills. I'm like,
Yeah, I know. I'm like all lit up.
ah.
Oh,
Thank you for being on this episode of the Alma Talks podcast. Um, and thank you for everybody listening. Thank you for dropping in. So wherever this episode found you, whether it's the morning, afternoon, evening, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. So until next time.
Take a full breath.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Bye, guys.